Good evening. The time is now 5:03 and the Warwick City Council Finance Committee is in session. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the September 4th, 2024 meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, did you second? I'm sorry. Did you second? Yeah. Okay, thank you. On to PCR 89-24, resolution relative to bids. May I have a motion for acceptance of the meeting minutes held on September 4th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 1 is bid 2025-130. This is OHCD Padula Square improvements. This is found on page 1. Good evening, Chief of Staff.
Good evening, Bill Facenti, Chief of Staff and Community Development Program Manager. Tonight I'm before you asking for approval in the amount of $78,310 to make improvements to the Padula Square. It's located in the East Natick area of the city between West Pontiac and Pontiac Streets. We talked at length about abandoning some property in the right-of-way to make this project happen in the last 2 months. This is for the actual construction of the square. What it is a traffic calming measure. The neighborhood association put this in its master plan, I believe, in 2009, and takes a little time. This is endorsed by the neighborhood association, and we are going to need to change the budget code, so I guess I'll need an amendment as well. We went out to bid, received 5 responses to the bid. We had 10 vendors at the mandatory pre-bid. 5 of the responders. There was one Warwick company, Godworks Inc., and they happened to also be the lowest qualified bidder. Prices ranged from a low of $78,310 to a high of $125,975. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to give, if it's okay with this committee, pass on a statement and or question to Ward 8, Councilman Sinapi, since this will be in his ward. Any objections?
No.
Thank you. Councilman Sinapi, would you like to add?
Other than to enthusiastically request approval, that's about it.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from this committee that can top that? There are no questions. Are there any questions, comments from members of the council? Are there any questions, comments from members of the public? Thank you, Chief.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you, Councilman.
Mr. Chairman, I do need to amend the budget code.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, please.
So the first budget code is going to remain the same, 510-05718, the amount of $14,753.74. The second budget code will be changed from 510-0400 to 510-05059.
Can you 510-05?
059, same dollar amounts.
0505.
Yes.
Thank you. And what was that amount, please?
$63,556.26.
So I'm going to read it back to you, Chief and Solicitor, just to verify that I got the numbers correct. Before I read it back, Chief, may I have the correct the budget code that we're staying, the budget code that we're keeping?
510-05718 in the amount of $14,753.74.
And if you don't mind, I'll say then the budget code in the amount of $63,556.26 is being changed from 510400 to budget code 5100505.
No. So one more time. So I don't know if it has to be exact, but the budget code 510-0400 is being changed to 510-05059
05059. That's what I missed. Okay, thank you.
for $63,556.26.
Yes. Okay, we have, hold on one moment. I'm just going to update one more thing in my notes. So for the record, for clarification, bid 2025-130 is now PCR 9024. It is to keep budget code 5100518 in the amount of $14,753.74. We are amending from budget code 510-400 to budget code 510-05059 in the amount of $63,556.26. Concur?
I believe you forgot a number in keep the original 510-05718.
Mr. Chairman,
That's why we do this.
so the only change, Chief, is the striking 510-0400 and replacing with 510-05059.
Correct.
All other numbers are the
All
same.
the other numbers
So
are
an amendment would only need to make that one change, Mr. Chairman.
Correct.
Thank you.
Clearly made it more complicated than it needed to be. Sorry.
I just want to make sure I get the notes correct. Thank you. Okay, so to keep it clear, are there any questions, comments on the change from members of the committee? Questions, comments from members of the council? Questions, comments from members of the public? May I have a motion on the amendment?
Favorable action.
Second.
I have a motion for favorable. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion on PCR 90-24 as amended?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chief. At this time, there are 4 items left on the docket. I am going to go through the committee, through the council, and then through the public. If there is an item that they would like to discuss on this docket, please indicate when I get to call it out. I would like to begin. I'm going to request we speak on bid 2025-186, DPW purchase new tires, found on page 12. Are there any items within the bid package members of this committee would like to discuss?
I'm good.
Thank you. Are there any items within this bid package that members of the council would like to discuss? Councilman Lattister.
I would like to discuss 2023-257 State of Rhode Island Premium Diesel, found on page 4.
Councilman Lattiser requests bid 2023-257 DPW State of Rhode Island Premium Diesel Exhaust Fluid. That is found on page 4.
Correct.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Are there any other items members of the council would like to discuss? Are there any items members of the public would like to discuss? Thank you. As always, I think it's just convenient to go in order, so we'll begin with bid number 2. I apologize. Item number 2, bid 2023-257 DPW State of Rhode Island Premium Diesel Exhaust Fluid. This is found on page 4. Director of DPW Purchasing, if you don't mind introducing, and then Councilman Lattiser, you have the floor.
Christy Moretti, Public Works.
Thank you, Chairman. So when I look at the numbers, this original bid was $120,000, and you've had it in place now for it's about 10 months, actually 22 months. And that averages out over the bid time of about $5,000 a month. So I was wondering why you feel you need 35,000 for the last 2 months, as opposed to what you've been averaging per month of 5,000.
So we've had some excessive repairs, particularly for the sanitation fleet. So when we have a hydraulic leak, when there's a transmission problem, even when they do a regular oil change, the volume is a lot. Plus, this also covers our grease and our DEF fluid, which at this point probably 80% of our fleet uses. The diesel vehicles also have an additive to the fluid, which is it's diesel exhaust fluid. It's DEF for short. So while I don't anticipate that we will spend $35,000, I would like to make sure that we have the items, we have the ability to order any of the products that we might need between now and the end of November.
So you feel you need to have a cushion of 3.5 times the amount that you've had to have or that you've used over the last 22 months.
Well, like I said, we've had some excessive repairs lately. And, our hydraulic tanks are 120 gallons. So that's 2.5 drums, basically.
Are there any encumbrances at this time?
No, I don't. There might be a small one for diesel exhaust fluid, which is usually around $10,000. But last year we spent, in fiscal year 23, we spent $47,712. In fiscal year 24, we spent $64,446. Although let me just backtrack a second. The full amount for fiscal year 23 doesn't necessarily count towards the cap. And that's just for our motor oil line item, which is where all of our fluids come from, all of our greases, all of that kind of stuff. So those numbers also don't include the DEF fluid that we purchased. So like I said, it is a cushion for us. It's not that we need or are going to spend it, but if we need to order 6 drums of automatic transmission fluid that are almost $5,000 a piece, then I want to make sure that the department has it so we can continue to keep the trucks on the road.
Are there any open invoices as of today?
I believe there are a couple invoices in about 9,300.
9,300 in totality? You said you
Yes.
believe there's a couple, so it's a total of 9,300 of open invoices right now?
I believe so.
Is that
I'm
what-
not 100% positive on that number, but
Okay, approximately. So this $35,000 extension is going to be used to pay for the 9,300 of invoices that are outstanding right now?
no, we do have a bit of a
Okay.
cushion left on the cap that we were originally awarded. I'm just asking for spending authority so we don't run into a problem where if we need something and we don't have enough spending authority to buy it, and the council meeting it's not timely for us to do that. I'm just looking
Yeah,
forward.
I understand. What is left in that line item now?
The bid cap or the bid.
Out of the 120,000, what's the balance as of today?
Well, the bid cap is 120,000 right
Right.
now. So right now we have about 5. This 9,300 came off the 13,000, so we probably have around 4,000 or 5,000.
Okay. I'm sorry, did you say 4,000 or 5,000?
Yes.
Okay. Left, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Christie. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir. Are there any further questions from members of the council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Please, to the microphone. One moment, please, Ms. Sharon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in this matter, and I've seen a few others, the city operates on a fiscal year, and this contract is ending in November. Why aren't we extending it to June 30th and have all of the contracts valid to coincide with our fiscal year spending? and not just have this end and then November, December, they're going to have to come back to get 7 more months of spending. It's just seems kind of foolish to me. But thank you.
Thank
I have
you.
to make a comment.
Any further questions from members of the public? Thank you. Next is bid 2025-186. I requested this is purchase of new tires found on page 12. Chrissy, earlier this week, upon reviewing this, I noticed that it was a small amount. I'm used to seeing 6 digits, like, a couple $100,000 for the fleet of vehicles. And I noticed this one was 30. And then I also noticed that we usually, if I understand it correctly, we have Sullivan Tire. And so there was a question of why are we going out to bid for a supplementary? And the answer I got is, which I agree with, I just want to put it on record, okay? Goodyear is the supplier, and they are out of Ohio. Sullivan is a local Goodyear dealer. They are the local. Pete's is local in Providence and will only be utilized if we cannot get tires that need them immediately. So with that, you did explain why the amount, in my mind, when we talk about tires, and I'm not taking this term lightly, but is so low. It's a 30, but this is a preventative maintenance, if you will. So if Sullivan is late or if Goodyear cannot supply those tires right away, we have an alternate we can go to get those tires replaced, to get those vehicles back on the road, and to keep the constituent services going.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. So this is just from that area there. So we're still utilizing Sullivan's. This is just an alternate, kind of like when we do paving, or when your department does paving. You have a primary, but if they say, hey, we're not going to get there, you have a secondary that you can go to.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to explain that to me.
of course.
Any questions from members of this committee? Any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
How many vendors bid on this originally?
2.
And that's the 2 that the chairman just alluded to?
Yes.
So Pete's Tire Bond, they didn't bother bidding last time.
They did not.
And instead of going with the other company that did bid, you're requesting that we award, or at least add to the vendor list, a company that didn't bother bidding in the first place.
Correct.
Why?
Because as the chairman just stated, the Goodyear bid that was submitted, that company is out of Ohio, and Sullivan Tire is our local Goodyear distributor. So why Goodyear bid against their local distributor, I have no idea. However, Pete's Tire Barn is right in Providence. So the only reason we would go to Pete's for any tires is if Sullivan cannot provide us with whatever size tire we need for whatever vehicle. If we can get it from Pete's, then we will go get it from Pete's and have it mounted here. But the problem is that we can't down trucks because we can't get tires, particularly sanitation. So that's why we're asking to add this vendor in the event that we have a truck that needs tires and Sullivan can't provide them for us, like immediately, because usually when we need tires, we need them either, next day or whatever. If Sullivan can't do that, we have an option where we can get the tires on the truck and get it back on the road.
So Sullivan Tire is the distributor for Goodyear, right?
They're a Goodyear distributor that,
A distributor of Goodyear.
yes,
And is Pete's Tire Bond also a distributor of Goodyear?
I couldn't confirm that.
The tires that you would anticipate purchasing from Pete's Tire Bond, Will they be Goodyear tires?
I couldn't confirm that either. If we're going to Pete's to get tires, it's the size that we're looking for, not the brand.
So Sullivan's Tire, do they handle only Goodyear tires?
I think they also do Bridgestone. There might be one other.
Do they handle the same tires as Pete's Tire Barn would handle?
Well, they handle the same size tires.
So my point is, you don't have to have Goodyear tires. If you don't have a Goodyear tire available in a particular size that you need, Sullivan Tire would have other options available to you. It just wouldn't necessarily be a Goodyear tire. As Pete's Tire Barn, they apparently can't provide you with a Goodyear tire, but they could provide you with something else. It seems unfair to me that here we are once again going to potentially reward a company that didn't bother taking the time to bid on something in the first place. So they were obviously too busy or were not interested. But now here we are. We have 3 or 4 other options with Sullivan Tire to keep the business there with a different manufacturer, but we want to, for some reason, put Pete's Tire Barn on the vendor list.
Our
as I-
interest is to keep the trucks on the road. You know, if we can get them from our bidded vendor, then we'll absolutely do that. But our interest is not the brand of tire or where it comes from. We're asking permission to do the right thing by the residents of the city. We don't care if they say, you know, Mickey Mouse's tire. We need the tire to put on the vehicle. We can't down trucks because we can't get tires for 3 days.
I understand. And I also understand that you said that Sullivan Tire has 3 or 4 other brands of tires that you could use.
Correct, and we do. But if they can't provide us the size, then they can't give us the tire.
Mr. Chairman, never mind. It's not going to matter anyways.
Further questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Hearing none, may I have a motion on PCR 89-24?
Most favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is PCR 88-24, a resolution relative to issuing requests for proposals for community projects. This is put forward by Council President McAllister. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are a number on this docket here. Ward 2, Norwood gazebo repairs. Ward 2, Norwood Park Community Garden, ADA compliant path and park benches. Ward 2, Drayton Boulevard asphalt path, berm, tree plantings and benches. Ward 2, Fairfax Island repairs and tree plantings. Ward 4, Walter Santos Outlook Park bench. Ward 6, Oakland Beach and City Park beach sand. Ward 6, Sea View Drive solar powered speed signs. And I also wanted to make sure that the council members were aware that also within this this resolution here, we made a note. We want to make sure that all ARPA funds are spent. We are not going to return any money to the federal government. So any ARPA ward project funds that are not spent. So if in case there's one ward that has $500 left or $1,000 left or $10 left, any funds that are left over that need to be allocated by the end of this year will be allocated by this resolution to the paving and asphalt budget within your ward. So we're just covering all the bases here. Please continue to put in your ward requests on that. But if there are any funds remaining by the deadline here, they will go into paving and asphalt budget to serve the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Any comments from members of the council? Okay, Councilwoman Travis, thank you.
The correct, or maybe the president didn't read that last line. It says Ward 6 Seaview Drive in Pequot Avenue, solar powered speed sign. Did you see that? Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure Pequot was in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Are there any other questions, comments from members of the council? Any questions, comments from members of the public? May I have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The time is now 5:29 and the Warwick Finance Committee is closed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next committee to meet is the Ordinance Committee, and that can start at 6 p.m. So we'll see you back here at 6 o'clock.
So the ordinance committee will convene at 6:01 PM. First things first, we do not have everybody at this time. So do we have a tag in? So first on the dockets, try again, round two. First on the docket, acceptance of minutes from the council meeting held on August 19th, 2024. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCO 9-24, an ordinance to prohibit through trucking on Pilgrim Parkway, Easton Avenue, Partition Street, Elmwood Avenue, south of Post Road, and Atlantic Avenue between Post Road and Warwick Avenue. This would be first passage, and it's Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I'll request favorable action, and at the pleasure of the chair, I have a few short comments.
How about it?
Thank you. So the Pilgrim neighborhood, Spring Green neighborhood, there are some other neighborhoods in that immediate vicinity. The general idea here is that 18-wheelers, large box trucks, they'll sometimes cut across these city streets in order to get from Post Road to Warwick Ave. In reality, what should be happening is that all of these large trucks should be sticking to the state roads. That is Post Road, Warwick Avenue, Airport Road. They shouldn't be cutting through that neighborhood. We already have ordinances on the books. This is amending an ordinance that is on the books to add these 5 streets. So the ordinance on the books already prohibits through trucking on Fairfax Drive, Sand Pond Road, Buckland, Massasoit, and some other streets right in that area. And so by adding these 5, the idea is that there's no sneaky way through to cut through the neighborhood to try to save that couple of minutes at the expense of disturbing the neighbors and all that wear and tear on our city streets. Let the wear and tear be on the state streets, which are actually designed for these kinds of weight limits. Specifically, this deals with Pilgrim Parkway, Easton Avenue, Partition Street, Elmwood Avenue south of Post Road, and Atlantic Avenue between Post Road and Warwick Avenue. So this will tighten up that ordinance so that there is no possible way for these trucks to cut through that neighborhood without violating this ordinance. It's certainly not going to solve the problem because ultimately, as noted in the favorable traffic study, ultimately it is a matter of enforcement that's actually going to get results here. But I do think that this ordinance is also going to make it a little bit simpler for the police to enforce this as well, because the police may not necessarily need to follow a vehicle all the way through the neighborhood because these streets are listed individually. And if one of these big box trucks or 18-wheelers is cutting through one of these particular streets, it seems to me that the intent of this ordinance and the way that the ordinance will read is such that if that big box truck enters one of those particular streets and the police see them exiting that particular street, the police officer doesn't have to necessarily catch them going through the entirety of the neighborhood. So I know that this is a little bit unusual to have 5 streets added all at once to the ordinance, but it is supported by a favorable traffic study, and that's the logic. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from members of the committee? No. Any questions or comments from members of the council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Of course.
Just a quick thought. We're going to be putting up school cameras, school zone cameras, red light cameras. Perhaps we could explore the idea of capturing certain plate types And then you won't have to worry about the policemen out there on these streets because clearly these people don't belong on side streets and they need to be stopped. And a few cameras, I think, could really stop the whole problem.
And can you just identify yourself, please, too?
I'm sorry?
Can you identify yourself for Lynn?
Sorry, Ann Sheridan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Works better when the mic is turned on. Thank you, Chairman. And to respond to the public comment, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I don't believe that the cameras are set up in that way currently, but if the administration were able to find a way to add that type of capability, I would be all for it. Anything to make the job easier, make this all that much more enforceable, and hopefully the mere existence of those no through trucking signs and those various cameras, I would hope, would have a bit of a deterrent effect so that we can mitigate that problem in the first place. Ultimately, just like everything else with the cameras, it's really not about generating revenue. It's about changing the behavior so that these massive trucks aren't barreling down the road, creating a safety hazard, and otherwise putting all that unnecessary wear and tear on the city roads that are simply not designed for this. Thank you.
Yeah, random fun story. I got to watch a tractor trailer get stuck on Harding Road and the cops had to show up. It's a good time. All right. Any other questions or comments from any party? All right. Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have a PCO 13-24, an ordinance requiring a public hearing before the City Council regarding the 5-year budget forecast. This would be first passage, and it's Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I am going to ask our council solicitor to speak to the language regarding public hearing. I had not requested to have this done at a public hearing, which would require a stenographer and costs and expenses that are not necessary. What I am looking for is for a comment period, question and answer period, if you will, at a council meeting, regularly scheduled, or at a special council meeting. So the intent is not to have a public hearing, but I'll ask the solicitor to just clarify that.
Through the chair, thank you, Councilman and Chairman. This is certainly something that can be clarified before the council itself with a clarifying amendment. Your intent is put on record, so if we could certainly address that at the council level, and I'll finalize that language accordingly should that be in play.
Okay. So the reasoning that I've presented this ordinance is I believe that when we're discussing the finances of a $360 million a year budget or corporation, or however you happen to view it, I believe that it's very important to be as open and as forthcoming as possible with these 5-year forecasts. I think these forecasts are extremely important, particularly for the members of the public and the taxpayers who are not involved in this on a day-to-day basis or even on a monthly basis or even a quarterly basis. Oftentimes, these forecasts and numbers that they're viewing it's the first time see. And there are many questions that people have regarding this, and I believe it's a disservice to not have or not allow the members of the public to have an opportunity to ask these questions when this 5-year forecast is being presented. There are oftentimes, I've found, regardless of the research and time and effort that I put into a particular item, that as discussion continues to move along at a council meeting, there's other things that trigger more questions for me, or questions I may not have had until that very moment. I also realize that doing a 5-year forecast it's a challenge. And in the private sector, we have to do them actually on a regular basis. If we are approaching a lender for a line of credit, we have to present them with a lot of financial information. We have to answer a lot of questions. We have to also anticipate that somewhere along the line, we may have a disruption in that forecast. We may have, such as in the early 1990, the banking crisis, such as 3 recessions, including the Great Recession, and including COVID. That certainly will have an impact on making adjustments to a 5-year forecast. But that shouldn't preclude us from having an open discussion on and about that 5-year forecast. It shouldn't preclude us from affording members of the public to ask those questions during a council meeting on the record. And it certainly shouldn't preclude us from having those questions answered as they are presented. And those are the reasons why I am respectfully requesting favorable action on this. I certainly don't understand why there would be an objection to hearing the questions that are asked from members of the public, regardless of whether or not we happen to agree with those questions, regardless whether or not we have a problem with those questions. I think it's prudent upon us as a governing body to afford that opportunity to anyone that takes the time to come here and have those questions answered, which include questions sometimes difficult. Why wasn't this included? Why wasn't that included? Why was this? Why was that? And in spite of submitting those questions in writing, it still doesn't always result in a straight answer. And to result in a chess game back and forth, that doesn't make any sense either. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, I am respectfully requesting favorable action on PCO 13-24. Thank you.
All right, are there any comments or questions from members of the committee? Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this particular one, I'll just give my my thoughts on that. The 5-year plan is not something that the council votes on or can change. There's always going to be questions about the assumptions that are made. Why was this included? Why wasn't this included? And I think that's what most of the questions would be based on. The other fact on these 5-year plans, the report is instantly dated almost immediately. For example, this last report that came out this summer in July and updated in August, it didn't factor in, we had just, after the report came out, we sold additional school bonds, and we actually had a lower rate that was projected in the 5-year report, and it was actually a $700,000 plus improvement towards the city. So it would have made the report look even better. And that's just an example. Could go the opposite way, of course, if the interest rates were higher than what was projected. So that's my concerns with having I think it's important that the 5-year plan is done. It's also part of the state requirement. We have it presented to the council. It is made public. It is presented to the council, so everybody is aware of it. But it's just one part. It's just one tool. It's one. It's one report that, again, the council does not vote on. It's not like we approve a 5-year plan or we're going to take a vote on the 5-year plan. Additionally, and I give it's almost redundant because we have something in place that I think is much more beneficial to the council and the taxpayers already on the books, and that is Rule 42, which was sponsored by Councilman Lattiser and Councilman Ricks, which we passed this past year, the council, which I support and still support. And that has to do with inviting the actuary to come and give a presentation to the city council before the budget. So I think that report is what we should be focusing on, because that is something that the actuary will come, they'll give us hard numbers, especially right before we do the budget. And that the budget is something that we vote on as council members, and it's the number one thing that we vote on. So my suggestion is that we use the actuarial report, Rule 42. We haven't implemented it yet. So credit gives to my colleagues for putting that forward. I think that's something that we should do before this next budget here. And I think that's kind of a report that has much more teeth, and is something that we can drill down on, and it's directly benefit to that year's budget that is coming up, which the council will vote on. So that's my thoughts on this proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Ricks?
Thank you. I think that Council President McAllister has raised some good points. However, I would tend to side in favor of this ordinance, and that's because while Rule 42, that presentation is going to be important to have before the budget hearings, by and large, really the vast majority of costs that are in the city budget have to do with pensions, benefits, salary, of course. So the 5-year plan tends to be presented and otherwise submitted to the state generally before we on the city council review the various contracts with the collective bargaining units. And I think that there is a benefit to having a hearing of the 5-year plan at that point in time as well. Even for the years where there are no collective bargaining agreements coming up for ratification, there is some benefit as well to having this type of hearing in the late summer or early fall, in addition to having the Rule 42 type of hearing in the, or at least opportunity to receive that information, ask questions, etc., even if not as a technical matter, a so-called public hearing with a stenographer. But yeah, putting that aside, I do see the benefit in having this second opportunity each year to review, look at the big picture. Obviously, everything when it comes to the budget is a moving target, but having those 2 opportunities per year, I think, is a net positive. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Councilman Gebhardt?
Thank you, Chairman. So, yeah, I think good points raised by all. In my experience, so, in my professional life, I do a lot of this type of forecasting activity. And larger organizations have, someone in charge of financial planning and analysis or something, and it's literally their whole job to put together these type of forecasts and scurry around and review it with stakeholders, with inside, outside board. And the one thing I could say about a forecast is no forecast ever gets worse based on having more input. And so while this may be, taxing for the finance director to come here and stand up and get a whole bunch of questions from the public, if even one of those adds a new perspective, I think it is overall helpful. I completely acknowledge what the council president said, which is that, as soon as you print this thing, it's effectively worthless, right? Because the world changes and interest rates change and everything else changes. But talking through those future scenarios, none of us have a crystal ball. The finance director doesn't have a crystal ball. But talking through those scenarios helps illuminate the different conditions that could happen out into the future. And it takes some of the surprise out of, when we get 3 years from now, we've had ample opportunity to talk about what some of the things that may or may not happen are. So I'll, keep an open mind here. Certainly don't want to be doing this type of activity, once a month or something. It's far too frequent. But as part of our overall financial management practice here, we have the budget. Now we have the actuary, and potentially now we have, a session on our 5-year plan. Or 5-year forecast. We call it the 5-year plan, but it's more of a 5-year financial forecast. I don't see where it's going to introduce a lot of harm. If anything, it just brings in more input, softens the blow, and provides more transparency and more opportunity to interact with the future of the city's finances. So I don't think it's a terrible idea, but I will listen to others. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Councilman Howe?
Thank you so much, Chairman. Very quickly, I, of course, do not support this resolution or ordinance because we have a budget hearing every year, and I'm going to kind of piggyback on what the council president said. We have a budget hearing every year, and every year the new challenges that are before us are in that budget. And every year the city, on the responsibility of the corner office, the chief executive and that team within the corner office, their responsibility is to put together a budget that we pinpoint and break down every year. What this is doing is taking a 5-year forecast, and they want to nitpick or pinpoint a 5-year projection, if you will. We do that during the budget season, and that goes along with what the council president said. This 5-year forecast is just that. We cannot decide or predict what storms are coming in a matter of 1 year than what we can do with this financial forecast. That's what the budget hearings are for. And each one of us dedicate an entire week, or I should say an entire month, of a lot of home study of that budget, contacting, calling, seeking answers of that budget. All these questions can be addressed. And then of course, the long term can also be, if people actually look at it with an open mind and an open eyes, the long term can be you could see the path of where we're going every year in that annual budget. This 5-year budget is a responsibility of the corner office to say, here's what we anticipate. So to spend comments on that 5-year budget, to me, seems redundant, and It's curious where the idea came from, but no need to answer. I know. And we do this every May. It's budget season, and we go over the budget every May. And as the council president said, that is what we vote on. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Councilman Foley.
Thank you. Just, I'll try to be quick. I support Councilman Howell and Council President McAllister. 5 years ago, when I first ran for this seat, I ran with the pledge of making the council more effective and efficient. This does not do that. To nitpick, I'm sorry, I don't want to use the word nitpick, to pinpoint questions in a 5-year forecast is not effective, is not efficient. As the council president said, we have the actuary coming here with hard numbers in answering our questions. And then, as Councilman Howell said, we have a month of May dedicated to the budget, 3 to 4 nights, and we will stay here as long as necessary to have the questions answered. By being effective and efficient, you call the directors ahead. You ask your questions. You do your homework. To put on a public display simply to campaign is not effective, is not efficient, and is not the role of this council. Thank you.
Any other members of the council that haven't spoken? Councilman Lattiser?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's actually surprising to me to hear anyone saying that people who are asking questions about a 5-year forecast are nitpicking. This is not, efficiency isn't about how quick we can get out of this chamber. Efficiently is how efficient we can overview and oversee the financial expenses of the city.
Just as a quick point of order, Councilman Lattiser.
Go ahead.
He clarified that he didn't actually mean nitpicking. Just wanted to point that out.
Point taken. To think that it's okay to alienate the public or to restrict their ability to ask questions about items in a 5-year forecast that, by the way, may be helpful. It may just present a different spin on what our financial future holds. It may also include items that were not included for whatever reason in this financial 5-year forecast. This is how entities in government gets in trouble, when there are differences in financial forecasts that are not discussed and that are not disseminated. And more importantly is, why would anyone be afraid or concerned or disagree with allowing the public who pays the bills, all of us who are on this city council? I know, we all pay the bills too, but so do the other thousands and thousands of people that live in the city. They pay the bills. They have a right to be heard. Whether we agree with the questions or the message or the messenger, that's not for us to determine. But as a legislative branch of government, and as that branch of government who is essentially responsible for every nickel and dime that's spent over $2,500, we have an obligation, in my opinion, we have an obligation to hear from the public, to hear what they have to say, to hear their questions, and to get those questions answered. here in public on the council floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do any members of the public have any questions or comments? Oh, I apologize, Mr. Sheridan. Councilman Foley?
To clarify, efficiency has nothing to do with getting out those doors. I'm an English teacher. Efficiency is getting to the point, getting the information in an effective way. Campaigning at the podium or at your seat is not effective or efficient. That's A. I'm not denying anybody the access to ask questions. They can email me, they can call me, they can email the chief of staff, they can call the mayor's office. And then if they want to, when the 5-year actuary, when the actuary comes, there's a time for questions. And as Councilman Howe points out, in the month of May, when we do the budget, they can ask questions, specific questions. One other point of clarification, I clarified myself. I did not mean to say nitpick. I went to point out, to pinpoint. That's what, when the actuary's here, and that's what we do when the budget is in front of us. Thank you.
Ms. Sheridan? Sorry, go ahead. And please, even though I'm identifying you, please identify yourself for the record.
I'm sorry?
Please go ahead and do the usual identifying yourself for the record.
Ann Sheridan. I've been a resident of Warwick since 1970. I've lived in wards 8 and 9 my entire life. I've only been coming to these council meetings regularly for the last year and a half. I think obviously, since I'm standing here and one of the few residents that's been listening to this, I think that just a discussion about the 5-year plan is warranted. There are 8,008 single-family homes in the city of Warwick owned by senior citizens. 8,000, that's over 30% of the households, probably even more than that are seniors. Most of us budget. We all do projections. Many of us are going to be looking at how long we can stay in our houses. You're going to be faced with the revaluation coming up and people looking to you to freeze taxes because the abundance of seniors think that you should freeze taxes. I don't agree with that because I don't think the city can handle it. You have hearings for the budgets, and they are, in my opinion, slam dunk. I mean, I've sat and listened to a few people come back and get a little twister here or there. But most of all, when the administration sets a budget forward, it's going to go forward. And then you demand, whether you like it or not, that we pay the bill because you approve the budget. It's a calculation of the budget versus the assessed value. You get a tax rate and you send out a bill and we pay it. And yes, we can come to these meetings, but most people don't even realize that the meetings are going on. I mean, we had this bloody discussion about whether property tax information is going to be in the calendar or not. There's not even a calendar note that this council meeting's going on. And you tell me that everything is on the website. Well, I'm pretty efficient at websites and I've worked a long time, but I'm one of those seniors that has worked and has stayed up to date with technical changes. It is nothing wrong with giving people the opportunities to hear what the forecast is. People are afraid over financing the schools, and they need more information. If you all voted slam dunk that we were going to get 2 new schools and that we're going to be stuck with paying $350 million for a smaller footprint, and we have to pay this. I'm not leaving. Many of you are leaving the council. Give the next administration an opportunity to have this meeting. If you don't want it to be a council meeting, then maybe let's ask the mayor to do it and have the administration handle it. But there is nothing wrong with providing us with more information. I mean, I've looked at a couple of things just on the forecast, and I'm like wondering, where is this going? And I will bring it up when I have a chance to speak later. But I certainly believe that there should be an opportunity, and I know all the pitfalls, and I know all the same people that are going to get up, and you're going to be disgusted to hear some of these people again and again and again say the same redundant things. But they're valid concerns, and they're concerns you have all heard in every one of your conversations with your constituents. And yes, we can email people, and sometimes we get email, because you all know I email you all sometimes. And sometimes I get answers, and sometimes not. And God bless my councilman. He puts up with me a lot because he gets a lot of emails and text messages, almost daily, I guess, and some of them are multiple times a day. I want to say I represent probably most of the 8,000 senior homeowners in this city. People need to know they can stay, and they're not going to be forced out. And the only way is to have an honest discussion about what the future looks like. I plan to be here 5 years from now, and my finances tell me I can do that. And a lot of us, some seniors, have financial advisors. You know, we're lucky enough, and some don't. And we've had this discussion many times about, is it the city's responsibility to keep people in the house or not? And maybe a discussion about 5 years would be enough for people to say, maybe it's time for me to move into something else. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this? And Chief, do you have anything on behalf of the administration?
Good evening, Bill Facenti, Chief of Staff to Mayor Picozzi. Not going into the details again, what Council President McAllister said and Councilman Howe, it's a forecast. The hurricane forecast, the precipitation forecast in stock markets, it's a point in time. As soon as that paper is printed, it's out of date. To be questioned on assumptions that are pretty well spelled out in the memo from Director Schaefer, it's, as far as the administration feels, is not necessary. This administration is one of the most transparent that I've worked for. And anytime anyone wants to ask a question, they can contact me. But to have Director Schaefer or whoever is in his place come before the city council and be asked on a forecast that they are not psychics. There's no crystal ball. It's a point in time. And as they said, as soon as it's printed, the information is stale, and being questioned on the assumptions is just, it's not what the council's role is. You can't vote on it. So that's all I have to say.
All right. So at least, oh, Ann, go ahead. Or Ms. Sheridan, sorry.
We all understand that a forecast is a moment in time. It's just a forecast. Nobody's expecting anybody to nail anybody, to commit to anything. You commit to a budget. That's even fluid. Budgets are overspent, underspent. We all understand that. What people would appreciate is being treated like adults that can look at something that happens to be a forecast and just listen and let people hear you explain how you got there and why you got there. I mean, the headlines were that we can all guarantee to expect a 4% increase every year. Interesting. I happen to know that we can go beyond that with certainty. We can go to the General Assembly and request to go over that for good reason, and lo and behold, the schools could be very good reasons. So we could be looking at spending even more money, and I think it wouldn't hurt. To be, I don't know, nice, kind, considerate of the people that pay the bills, and that's all people are asking, is just give us an opportunity to plan for our own lives. I mean, most of us know that the bills, everything's going up. There's very little that stops But when you look at the fact that the cost of education already is $25,000, $26,000 a child, commercial real estate is not being built aggressively. The homeowners are always going to be, it's always going to be 30-60 with the burden 60% on the homeowners. The more information people have about their city and the wants and the needs of the city can't be enough. Thank you.
Because I didn't turn my mic on in time, I'll just state for the record that that was Ann Sheridan from Ward 9. I was, for the record, identifying you because I failed to ask you. It's not your fault, it's mine. Any other members of the public wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the statement was made with your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Once we just finish with Richard, we'll be able to hear it. Or are you just signing up for the public comment?
Right. Oh, no, I'm here to speak on behalf of Mr. Lattiser's proposal.
Got it.
I've come here month after month and listened to him question management or the city administration about various aspects. And I have come to understand that the public is really being cut out of a lot of discussion when it comes to the mayor and the administration. And the more that we can do to open this up to the public, the better. Warwick is changing. There are many new people moving in, mostly from the Boston area. And they expect a city, open city. For instance, they're pushing for new high schools. Okay, a lot of people are saying we can't afford new high schools. But the truth is that if these people are moving in and they have higher income, maybe we can afford the new high schools. But we need to have a forum where the people can discuss these kinds of things. So I very much speak in favor of this. Thank you very much.
Any other members of the public wish to speak? All right, seeing none, Councilman Howe.
Very quickly, Councilman, I just want to say I heard in the statement from the previous public speaker, it was a slam dunk for the council people to vote for the schools. Please understand that the vote was on behalf of our constituents. The citywide voted 60%, over 60%, to approve the $350 million bond for those schools. So we did represent our constituents. Thank you for the time.
Any other members of the council wish to speak? Councilman Gephardt.
I thank you for another bite at the apple. I had a point I wanted to raise before, which is that the school committee just went through a very similar debate and exercise where the chairman was pushing to hold a meeting to talk about the status of building the schools. And he received a lot of pushback from members of the body saying that, well, the schools are in flux. We're not going to, something that might be in today might be out tomorrow, or might be back in, or might be bigger, or might be smaller. So why are we going to have a meeting with the public when things could change? And he told this sort of story to the members to say, hey, if my wife and I were buying a house and we went to look at a bunch of houses and she wanted 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and attached garage, and I went to my real estate agent and said, here's my budget, and they said, whoa, you're not gonna be able to get that for that budget. Would you be better off just at the end signing the documents and showing her the 2-bedroom house with no bathroom and no garage, or would you be better off going together and stepping through the process so that you can see where you're going to end up? And I think it's our responsibility as the voice of the public in this city. Yeah, people can email us, cool. But we can also, offer folks 5 minutes to make a comment about questions they might have about the forecast. It's not going to take up that much of our time, and some of us may actually get something out of that. So I'm actually renewed in my vigor to support this.
Any other members of the council wish to speak? Councilman Lattiser?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Lattiser, I should add too, you have 1 minute remaining.
I'm sorry?
You have 1 minute remaining.
To point out, it was actually 58% of the voters voted for the schools. And I also need to point out that I was the only member of the city council that voted no on those schools. I continue to vote no on those schools. And we're talking about information. We're talking about questions that need to be asked and perhaps should have been asked. Well, here we are. There's your perfect example about what you were told and what you're getting. So again, I think that it's extremely important for the plan that the plan includes the public. It's very important that the members of the public are part of the plan, because that old saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Thank you.
Any other members of the council wish to speak? Oh, Council President McAllister?
Thank you. Councilman, I believe you wanted to make an amendment, correct, on the terminology. You didn't want a public hearing, correct, originally? So why don't we might want to just move it to the full floor, move it out of committee at this time, and we can take it up at the full floor, and then I can acknowledge you to.
You can amend it right in
make an
committee,
amendment.
can't you?
We could, but.
I'm sorry?
The committee only makes recommendations. It'd be duplicating the process. So
We'd have to do it
if you and I
twice,
would
so.
like a sidebar quick, we can
That's
address
fine.
it.
So that would be my recommendation. We move it to the full floor, and then when it comes up, the councilman can make the amendment, and we can do it the one time.
Move favorable action.
Well, I was going to make the motion to move to the floor for further discussion.
Dueling motions, how fun. The floor is still at McAllister, so he said he was going to make the motion. So the motion is to move it to the floor with no recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I guess I'll save my piece till the full floor. All right, so looks like ordinance committee is concluded at 6:49 PM unless Lynn throws something at me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The next committee to meet is the Public Properties, and that can meet at this time. Also want to make a note that we do have public comment this evening, and there's a sign-up sheet on the podium there. If you would like to sign up, you can speak after 7 o'clock when the council meeting starts. Thank you.
The City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs comes to order at 6:50. First up, acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on September 4th, 2024. Do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Two items on the agenda. First is PCO-11-24. This is Councilman Snappy. It is an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Warwick, City of Warwick. Petitioner, Rhode Island Custom Builders. Applicant, 1515 Centerville Road, Assessor's Plat 251, lots 11 and 12. Councilman Snappy, do you have a recommendation? All right, recommend public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Move it to a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, second and final on the agenda, PCO-12-24, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Warwick. Petitioner, Rhode Island Custom Builders. Applicant, 1187 Post Road. Assessor's Plat 296, lots 162 and 579. This is in Ward 2. I will recommend moving to public hearing before the full council. Do we have a motion?
Move for a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So to be clear, those two items, they are going to be heard in front of the city council as a whole after the city council opens at 7 o'clock, following some other items as stated on the city council agenda. And with that, the committee adjourns at 6:52 p.m.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And again, we will start the full city council meeting at 7 p.m. And just another reminder, if you'd like to be heard before the council this evening, there is a sign-up sheet, and we do have 2 public hearings where you have an opportunity to speak as well on those 2 projects. You do not have to sign up to be heard on those 2 public hearings. We will see you back here at 7 p.m. Good evening, everyone. I call the September 16th, 2024 City Council meeting to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Here.
Mr. Lattiser?
Here.
Mr. McElroy? Mr. Ricks?
Here.
Mr. Sinapi? Here. Ms. Travis?
Here.
8 present.
Thank you. Councilman Lattiser, if you could introduce the individual who's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, then we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. We have the national anthem, and I'll come back to Councilman Lattiser for a special presentation. Councilman
Yes,
Lattiser.
thank you, Mr. President. If I may ask Jessica Collins to come forth and lead us in the pledge. Just speak right into the mic.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jessica.
Thank you. If there is no objection, I would like to go right to general communications as we have a guest here. Is there any objections from members of the council? Okay, Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jessica, if you could come forward. If anyone would like to come along for support for Jessica, feel free to come right on up. I know we have, this is just an amazing turnout for such a deserving individual. I can tell you, I've been on the council for 12 years, and I don't recall ever seeing such a large group of support for a particular person, and so well deserved for Jessica. You know, the saying that, you know, rain, snow, hail, or sleet, you know, the mail must go through. Jessica takes it to even a different level. It's beyond the delivery of the mail. It's about, oh, the trash wasn't picked up. Are they okay? Rings the doorbell. Is no one home? Is she sick? Does she feel well? Bring him soup, whatever. This young lady is incredible. And when you have that type of dedication, regardless of what industry you happen to be in, regardless of whether you're delivering the mail, whether you're, whatever you're doing, to have that dedication to the people that you work for, which is all of you, is amazing. When this was talked to me about you at one of the recent gatherings at the Riverview Improvement Association, obviously an extremely active organization, this is like, this just can't go unnoticed. This young lady deserves to come before this honorable body, before the city council, in the city council chambers, and be officially recognized for going above and beyond, way above and beyond delivering the mail. Just an absolute individual. No, you won't. I won't let you. So because I'm a whole lot older than you, I have to put these things on so I can read this. You can read it.
Okay.
No, I'm only kidding.
I was ready.
Oh, by the way, when I just called you a second ago, the city clerk was extremely quick to turn the national anthem on. Normally, there's a few seconds in between the pledge and the national, and I was just gonna like really get to you and say, Jessica, you have to lead us in the national anthem too. But she saved you, so you can thank our city clerk for that.
I will. On my way out.
This is a resolution of congratulations. Resolved that whereas Jessica Collins works for the United States Postal Service, and whereas Jessica has been serving the Riverview Neighborhood Association for many years and has become an honorary member of the neighborhood, and whereas Jessica has served this community in many ways, and one characteristic that distinguishes Jessica's career as a public service is her enormous capacity for hard work. And whereas Jessica has earned the respect and admiration of everyone with whom she has come in contact with, whereas Jessica's friendship and concern for others exemplifies the sense of community so important to the Riverview neighborhood, and whereas these years of service has been marked by exemplary dedication to the best interests of our community, and we appreciate all her assistance to the Riverview neighborhood. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the mayor and the City of Warwick City Council wish to congratulate Jessica Collins for her outstanding commitment to the Riverview neighborhood and to extend to her our deepest appreciation for all her dedicated work and wish her all the best in her future endeavors. Jessica, congratulations and thank you very much. Jessica.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I'd also like to thank and recognize amongst all of the members of the Riverview Improvement Association and neighbors that our ward postmaster has also taken time out of his busy schedule to be here this evening to recognize and celebrate with Jessica. Thank you, sir.
Take a picture for Dave.
I think he got it. He got it.
She's starting to get me concerned now that she might be running for council. She's liking this too much. Okay, Jessica, goodbye. Good night.
We're just going to pause the council meeting for about 5 minutes here. Thank you.
Mr. Langseth?
What's up?
All right, thank you again. We are back at the full council meeting. We are still under general communications. These are the announcements of congratulations, condolences, our community events. Do any members of the council have any general communications at this time? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank you and all my colleagues on the city council for your indulgence with this evening. I know it was take some extra time, but so well deserved. And as you can see, the turnout and the relationship that the community has with her is amazing. So thank you all.
That was great. Councilman Sinapi.
Just to announce that the Pontiac Neighborhood Association is having their annual fall festival on Saturday. It'll be from 10 to 2 at the park in Pontiac.
Thank you. Councilman Gephardt.
I wanted to congratulate the Coesit Neighborhood Association on their 8th annual block party held this weekend at St. Craig's Church. Over 400 people came out, had a movie, had all kinds of activities. So it was a pretty awesome day. So I just want to thank everyone who helped plan that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Howe.
Very quickly, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to recognize and thank Representative Vella Wilkinson, former councilwoman of Ward 3, Camille Vella Wilkinson, as well as recognize the host Ward 6 Councilwoman Donna Travis, and thank Councilwoman Travis and Mayor Picozzi for putting on a very respectful, very honorable September remembrance, as they do every year. I encourage anyone to go to Ward 6, Oakland Beach Wall, and go see that September 11th memorial. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other council members on anything under general communications? Okay, again, at this time, we do have executive session of the city council. First up on the agenda, we do have 2 public hearings. The stenographer is on her way. So if there's no objections, we do have 4 individuals have signed up for public comment. So if there's no objections from my colleagues, I'd like to do public comment at this time. Is there any objections? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to public comment. Rule 41, after the general communications and prior to the consent calendar, at the last regularly scheduled meeting of the city council each month, there shall be a period of time not to exceed 30 minutes during which citizens may comment about Warwick city government issues subject to the following stipulations. The total period of time for public comment shall not exceed 30 minutes. Comments need to be brief in order to allow as many citizens as possible to participate. Each citizen signed up and present shall have not to exceed 5 minutes to speak, provided, however, that if there are more than 6 citizens are signed up and present, the 30 minutes will be split evenly among speakers. Time shall not be transferable among speakers. The topics for comment shall be issues directly affecting city government. City council members will not respond to questions during public comment period. The public comment session will terminate at the expiration of the earlier of all the speakers concluded their allotted time or 30 minutes. Waiver of this provision requires a unanimous vote of the council. So I do want to do a last call. Is there anybody else that would like to sign up? We have 4 individuals. Anyone else here that would like to sign up that hadn't had any chance? Okay. The first speaker, and each individual will have up to 5 minutes, is Ann S. We just want to make sure that the mic is on if someone could help her with that. It's on. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, and this will be the last tonight. Many of these issues are probably not under your direct responsibility, but for one, I think Public Works needs more mowers, especially the mowers with have twist heads on them, because not only are the sidewalks need desperately cutting, but the walls and the guardrails, you can't see them. I've reported several through the app online, and I'm waiting to see how they get done. But anyway, just if we have some extra ARPA funds, that would be a good use. On the 5-year project, there is the finance director, if I understand, included $3 million in the projections that is coming from the school cameras and the red light cameras. I, again, do not think that income that we do not expect to be constant and ongoing should be included in an ongoing budget. The chief clearly said that the school cam revenue will decrease and has in every other city that's had them. And putting this kind of revenue, whether it's the sale of a piece of real estate or this income or the revenue from discovered accounts that had balances in them, only puts the taxpayer in a worse situation when that money has to be found the next year. Next year, we're coming into a revaluation, and we're looking at probably a $10 to $14 million hole in the budget before we even get started. And the taxpayers are going to go, they're going to be very upset, and they're going to blame the increase in taxes on the revaluation when it's not going to be the problem. The Public Works Director at the last meeting pointed out that the city needs 3 garbage trucks every 2 years for the next few years. And I happened to look at the capital budget expenditures and saw 1 truck anticipated. So that led me to the question is that $3 or $4 million that it's going to cost? These trucks are almost $500,000 a piece. Is that in the 5-year projection, or is that something that the department is saying that we need, but hasn't been communicated to the finance department? I'm hoping that the finance director has reached out to all these departments and got their wish list. But again, that's another reason for a meeting to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Clayton P.
Good evening. My name is Clayton Palmer. I'm a resident in Ward 7. I've been a resident of Warwick since 1983. I'm here today to redress a grievance with you about an ordinance I've encountered. I believe this ordinance violates Rhode Island State Constitution, Rhode Island General Law, and my civil rights. The ordinance in question is City of Warwick, Chapter 6, Boards and Commissions, Article 4, Board of Public Safety, Section 6-72, Permits, Concealed Carry Weapons, Paragraph 2, Part D, which was passed 5/15/15. It states the applicant must demonstrate competence, familiarity, and proficiency with a handgun by completing a certified NRA firearm safety course or its equivalent of at least 4 hours, which includes classroom and range time. This ordinance, I believe, is in direct violation of Rhode Island General Law 1147/58, firearms state preemption, which states the control of firearms, ammunition, or their components, parts regarding their ownership, possession, transportation, carrying, transfer, sale, purchase, delay, licensing, registration, and taxation will rest solely with the state. This law, known as the statewide preemption law, prohibits local governments from enacting or enforcing any ordinance or regulation related to firearms that are more restrictive than the state. This ordinance, I believe, is in violation of the Constitution of the State of Rhode Island, specifically Article 13, Section 2, which is in regards to home rule for cities and towns. Section 2, local legislative powers. Every city and town shall have the power at any time to adopt a charter, amend its charter, enact and amend local laws relating to its property, affairs, and government, not inconsistent with this Constitution and laws enacted by the General Assembly in conformity with the powers reserved to the General Assembly. Also, I believe this ordinance is in violation of Article 1, Section 2, which has 6 elements. I will read 2 that are applicable to this situation. Article 1, Declaration of certain constitutional rights and principles. Section 2, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied equal protection under the law. I believe this ordinance is also in violation with the U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment. I'm not going to go over it. It's pretty much verbatim as the state constitution. What are the requirements under the law? Under 1147:11, you must be 21 years of age or over, having a bona fide residence or place of business within the city or town, or any person 21 years of age or over having a bona fide residence within the United States and a license or permit to carry a pistol or revolver concealed upon his or her person issued by the authorities of any other state or subdivision in the United States. Also, he or she will be a suitable person to be licensed. The license or permit shall be in triplicate form to be prescribed by the Attorney General and shall bear the fingerprint, photograph, name, address, description, and signature of the licensee and the reason given for the desiring the license. The other law and requirement applicable is 1147:15, which is proof of ability required for a license or permit. No person shall be issued a license or permit to carry a pistol or revolver concealed upon his or her person until he or she has presented certification as prescribed in 1147:16 that he or she has qualified with a pistol or a revolver or caliber equal to or larger than the one he or she intends to carry. That qualification to consist of a firing score of 195 or better.
You have 1 minute, sir.
Roger. Out of a possible score of 300. So the requirement is you have to show proficiency on a target with an NRA instructor. On August 23rd, several weeks of effort and time, it took me time to complete this application. I went to the Warwick Police Department to submit my application, and they refused to accept my application, claiming this ordinance, as stated previously, This ordinance, as stated previously, was in effect. This ordinance is not listed as a requirement in the application, nor is it cited on the website where you find the link to download the application. This immediately caused an unnecessary delay in the process to exercise a constitutional right. After doing a little research into these classes, I found that not only are they not readily available, but they also are quite costly. Between $250 and $550. Rhode Island General Law 1147-12 states that the fee to obtain a license in the state of Rhode Island is $40. I'm here tonight to request the City Council review and repeal or amend this ordinance. I urge you to take this complaint seriously for the legal integrity of the city legislation and the rights of its citizens.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Richard L.
Richard Langseth, Budlong Farm. The first topic is the handicapped access to the City Hall. As you may recall, last month I brought to your attention the lack of handicapped access to the City Hall. I talked to the mayor's office, got no response. This is part of a larger issue. It's the building of the skating rink, if you will, behind City Hall. I see very little progress. It just seems like one or two guys show up once in a while. This is a very high priority item for us trying to get to City Hall. I would like to see the mayor move this project ahead so that there's adequate parking. But in any case, we need more handicap parking. And I would urge the City Council to talk to the mayor's office and get that moving ahead. I'd really appreciate that. This is kind of a strange thing, and it just came up. Some cities and towns and counties have secret non-disclosure agreements with various entities, and it's becoming more and more common. So I asked under an APRA request to the clerk for any non-disclosure agreements that the city has with RIAC. It would be devastating if that's true, but I hope that we all move ahead to find out whether we have any non-disclosure agreements with RIAC. Another issue that comes up every month, of course, is Buttonwoods. There is an ordinance describing some of the streets at Buttonwoods as being private streets. The ordinance never had a hearing. It was not pre-advertised. It was just slipped in. Hopefully, we can get this before the City Council. While the present City Council members are still here, I would, I've been talking to the city solicitor. Hopefully, we can get this thing moving ahead because it's been since June, and it's just going rather slowly. And then, of course, the final thing is the field view. I call it Strawberry Field. That's coming up for a second passage. And I'm under the impression that RIAC is not moving very fast with this project. If you go there, you see very little activity. They have awarded a $44 million contract with a developer to build the infrastructure upon which Federal Express and UPS and whatever are going to build their facilities. The funding is scant. There's very little funding for this. And I would urge for the next 2 weeks to everybody consider the idea that if you're going to abandon these streets at Strawberry Field, that you put a contingency in based upon the development of the project. And if they don't move forward with the project, then the streets are not abandoned. I think that that's a fairly modest requirement. Now, the city solicitor came in and he said that, well, the statute doesn't require that. Well, as I understand statutes, if they don't deny something, the city has the ability to do something. If the statute says you cannot, do so-and-so, well, then of course you can't do it. But if the statute says, okay, you can abandon streets, then you can put contingencies on that abandonment. And I would really wish that everybody consider this. Again, I can't describe enough my frustration that the airport is getting away
You have
with.
1 minute, Mr. Langseth.
That the airport is getting away with $4 million gift because the appraiser doesn't understand how to appraise airports. Again, this will come up in 2 weeks, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Dawn F.
Hello, my name is Dawn Forte. I live in the Apponaug neighborhood. I am a retired art public school teacher, and I now am a substitute teacher here in Warwick. I moved to Warwick. I lived in Cranston for many years, and when my kids were grown, we decided to move here to Warwick. We live across from the Crow's Nest, and I absolutely love it here. I would always enjoy the parks here in Warwick. I would drive here to paint, and I just want to say thank you for that. The public spaces here are absolutely beautiful, and I don't think there is another place in Rhode Island, another city in Rhode Island, quite like Warwick, because of the parks that you offer. I go to City Park on a daily basis. I either walk, ride my e-bike, or run. And I love Goddard, and I also live on right next to that little Arnold's Neck waterfront park. There are 3 little concerns. Well, one of them is kind of a major concern, actually, because recently there were a couple of, the concern is speeding. And Mr. McAllister, I spoke with him over the phone, and he's already working on the problem, and I was very happy to hear about that. He's putting in something for speeding with the police. He's working with the police. So that's really good news, and I can't wait to tell everyone. I'm sorry that I don't have the fishermen with me. I do have signatures, but I didn't bring the neighborhood. The next time, though, I'm going to have them come here with me. Hopefully I can get them here. So that was the main concern for me, was the speeding, because some of the ducks have been killed recently on the side of the road, and I have not seen that before here. I've been here now since 2016, and I've never seen the ducks killed on the side of the road. So I think with the improvements of the new restaurant and the bait shop, people are just, I don't know, they're eager and they're speeding, and they don't realize they're speeding. So thank you for that. And very quickly, since the new company's solar, many of the young or the individuals that go there, I noticed, have come to the waterfront park, Arnold's Neck, and before they leave, a lot of them spin and speed after their weed. They spin and speed after the weed, and it creates a dust storm. And the dust storm from the parking lot there goes into my home. The dust goes all over my house. And I was hoping to get gravel. The marina down the street from me, Safe Harbor, just put gravel in, and it looks absolutely beautiful. And they don't have any of that speeding there. And we do have gravel, but it's very, very old, and it's more like dirt now. And so it comes up like a dust storm. So if we could get some gravel at the waterfront park, the fishermen would really appreciate that. There's a lot of potholes, and the ducks are swimming there as well during the rainy season. And the last thing would be the extensive weed growth on the telephone poles and on the power lines. And I'm not sure if that's going to affect the infrastructure.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. And there's a beautiful pine tree right at the waterfront park that the city put in. It's a very expensive pine tree, And it's beautiful, but it's being strangled to death by weeds. So I talked to Jay today. He was there doing a fabulous job cutting with the weed whacker in between rocks. And he told me that would be a job for highway because it's a more difficult problem with the strangulation of this tree. But it is beautiful landscape that the city put in, very expensive landscape that I don't want to see, go away, and the power lines as well. So we do need some trimming of that. And I just want to say thank you. I have some art to share with you if I could give to Mr. McAllister after the meeting. It's just a little thank you from me to you, a little painting that I did of the cove, one of many. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
listening.
Thank you. If you want, Councilman Gephardt will grab it. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Yeah. Now, again, we're kind of moving around on the agenda here. We do have two public hearings. We do have a stenographer here. So is there any objections to hearing the public hearings at this time? And then we will go into an executive session. I'm sure the attorneys will object to that, but sorry. So is any objections to hearing a PCO 11-24 at this time? Okay, hearing none, we are now on referred business. Number one is PCO 11-24, committee report public properties.
Recommend opening public hearing.
Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. So how we do public hearings here in Warwick is what I will do is I will ask, is there anyone here to present this proposal to the city council? An individual will come up and they will identify themselves and they will present this proposal to the city council. Then I will ask members of the council if they have any questions or comments at this time. Then after that, we will move to the public. I will ask 3 times, are there any members of the public that would like to speak in favor of this project? Then I will ask 3 different times, are there any members of the public that would like to speak against this project? And then we will also offer an opportunity, and I will give that 3 times as well. Is there anyone who would like to be heard on this project? After those 3 things are done, we will then move back to the full council meeting, and the council will close the public hearing and continue it there. And then we will do one, and then we'll move to the next one after that. So that is how this will go this evening. I ask that each speaker please speak slowly and identify themselves and into the microphone. It's very difficult to hear in these chambers, and we have the stenographer here for the record. So is there anyone here this evening to present PCO 11-24, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Warwick, custom buildings, applicant 1550 Centerville Road?
Good evening, Mr. President. David Johnston, attorney for the applicant. My office at 2363 Post Road in Warwick.
Good evening, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So we're seeking a zone change application here this evening. It's Plat 251, lots 11 and 12 on Centerville Road. That's just opposite Legree Ave, or Legree Ave stops on Centerville Road. It's a 1.43 acre parcel of land. We're proposing 14 townhouse-style units, 2 and 3 unit buildings. Parcel is excuse me, the parcel is currently zoned A7. We're seeking to add this to the PDR overlay district, which would be considered an A7/PDR zone, subject to your approval this evening. The planning board did unanimously approve the master plan application and also unanimously gave a positive recommendation for this zone change application here this evening. The planning board found that the project is consistent with the surrounding area and the surrounding neighborhood, is consistent with the community's comprehensive plan for existing as well as future land use goals in the comprehensive plan. We have reviewed all of the planning board's stipulations that are part of their approval, and the applicants, as well as myself, are in full agreement with these stipulations. The goal ultimately of this project is to provide a wide variety of housing options in Warwick. These are going to be townhouses that are more competitively priced with single-family residentials in the neighborhood. However, they offer the same amenities as far as location, size of living, et cetera. It really opens the community up to younger individuals, younger families to get their foot in the door of home ownership, as well as older folks retiring, looking to get out of a single-family home. The applicants and myself are here this evening, happy to answer any questions. The owners and applicants, excuse me, are here this evening to discuss any questions or any concerns the members of the council may have.
Thank you very much. This is in Ward 8, Councilman Sinapi.
So that property right now is not great, so I'm glad to see something's potentially going to be done with it. My main concern is if there's any issues from abutters that hasn't been addressed, and obviously we haven't heard one way or another in that regard from those here. So I'll reserve my comments for the moment.
Thank you. Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. Did you say that this parcel is 1.7 acres?
A little less than that, 1.43 acres.
1.43, okay.
The density in the zone is 12 acres per unit. We're slightly under that. I think it would allow for 16 or 17 units, if I recall. The initial conversations, it was reduced down in conversations with the planning department.
And you're looking to put in 12 units?
This is 14 units. It's 2 units and 3 units.
Do you know what the value of the 1.43 acres is?
I'm an attorney. I am a real estate attorney. Whenever people ask me what something's worth, I always shake my head when I see what it's sold for later. I really don't know what it is. I know the applicants purchased it a little while ago, looked at various different options, and this is something that in their discussions with the planning department, they landed on as a viable option. But I don't know.
Okay. I don't, excuse me, I don't have any objections to this. The only thing that I would request is that the comments that have been put forth by our building official, Al DeCourt, be included in this. And he's basically got the same thing and the next one coming up too. Other than that, I don't have any concerns with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing that this is Ward 8, I will go on the recommendation of the councilman who has to answer to his constituents, but I do have a general question. It seems like lately we've had, you said at the beginning, this is a residential area with a lot of individual houses. It's an A7 property, and you're looking for the variance to make it for the townhouses. If you look at the landscape of that neighborhood and it's single-family houses, why multifamily?
So this property it doesn't enter through a neighborhood. This is direct access to the main artery on Centerville Road. So you're not putting the townhouses in behind a bunch of residential families. So it does have direct access to a main road. The difference between a standard A7 subdivision that wouldn't be here, that would be before the planning board, and an overlay zone like this is that it allows us to bring the density in to pull things in closer from the property line. So we have a smaller private driveway, and we have reduced setbacks to that private driveway. So the buildings can be closer to each other versus a 40-foot wide road that's got to go right up the middle, which necessarily, it one, reduces the number of units you could do, but two, it pushes the impact out to the outer lying area, right? So it moves the homes closer to the abutting property lines, creates a bigger road, a bigger impact as far as drainage. It creates a public road as well, which has a bigger impact as far as city structure. So the overlay zone is for parcels kind of like this one, similar to the one that is on the next public hearing as well that we have, where they're somewhat underutilized. They can't be easily tied into an existing neighborhood. It would have to dead end with the cul-de-sac. So you're dealing with a lot of pavement, a lot of infrastructure that the city would ultimately own. The overlay districts allows you to get similar density with less impact to the city. And as you're pulling things in, you're making your infrastructure smaller. So it's less drainage concerns, less environmental impact concerns, and you're allowed to have a buffer. It gives you room for a buffer. There's a 10-foot vegetated buffer. So there's from the property lines in 10 feet, there's a garden. Part of the preliminary plan or next phase of this application to the planning board is a landscape design that has certain standards to allow for screening at different heights so that when you're sitting in your backyard, you're not looking at this project. So that's at the next phase. This overlay gives you a 10-foot wide buffer, and then you're 25 feet on the sides to your building, 35 feet in the rear to your building. So the overlay allows you to shrink things down, minimize the impact while creating the same amount of density.
So if I can clarify, this plot of land that you're looking to build on, if you were to build single-family dwellings, you would have to have a road that goes straight up into the gut.
Yeah, that's
with
correct.
So that would
Yeah.
reduce.
There's
Okay.
a good example of this exact parcel that was built, and I can say things about the builder because he was my father. It would be Great Woods Avenue off of Greenwich Avenue. Very similar. It was about 9 or 10 houses on about the same size parcel of land, but it's a large road that goes up, has a circle in the back, and comes back out. So it's considerably more infrastructure had to go into a project like that. Then versus now, all of that drainage has to be caught on site and dealt with. So much smaller retention basins, retention ponds, and other infrastructure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other questions at this time for members of the council?
I may have one, but I'm going to wait till after the public speaks because I'm looking for something.
Okay. So we will move to the members of the public. Again, I will ask 3 times first for people who are speaking for, then I will ask if there anyone here to speak against, and then I will ask if anyone who would like to be heard on this project. So at this time, is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this project?
Hello, my name is Richard Langseth, Langseth. I live at Budlong Farm. I speak in favor of this project. We need affordable housing in Warwick. Centerville Road, as we all know, is pretty much a disaster already. To add more housing on that road is in my mind okay, because you just can't get down there very well anyway. So it doesn't really matter. It's never going to get to the point of absolutely stopping traffic. So those of us who have to go to the courthouse, we just have to put off our time a little bit. I'm just joking. But I think it's really important that the city council understands that there are people who really want to move to Warwick and really need affordable housing. And Mr. Johnson's proposal fits right into that. And I speak in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this project?
Good evening. My name is Gail Barnes. I have the plat adjoining this piece of property. And I personally will be glad to see something put in there that will improve the neighborhood and give new life to a vacant piece of land that we couldn't do anything with it. It was too small to build on. Nobody wanted it. Debris, trees fall down, things like that. So when I saw this plan come up, I immediately took interest in it. I think it's going to be great. I like the layout. I understand they're going to take care of some of the water drainage problem. And I think it'll be a good addition to the neighborhood. And I'm looking forward to see it developed quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anyone here that would like to speak against this project? Come on down.
Unfortunately, I missed the first half because I went to the wrong building. So I apologize. My name is Susan Anderson, and I bought the lot itself. My biggest concern last time before, which I was told nothing could be done as far as the traffic, congestion, the noise. We're on the flight plane, that the planes go right overhead also. And right now, the trees in that lot are hiding. I don't know, it's West Warwick. On the opposite side, there's a smoke shop that went in about a year and a half ago, and they have LED lights that shine 24/7. I don't know, I know this is Warwick, if something can be done about that at all, because I understand if this gets developed, then I would assume there's not going to be that much of a buffer for that lighting situation. My biggest concern is flooding. My house drops down. I have a rock wall behind me, and it drops down at least 3 feet. And my neighbor that just spoke, I understand she already has some flooding in her basement. And I've spoken with several other neighbors that they said they wouldn't come tonight because they figured the deal is already done, and that's what they told me. And they have flooding, and they've put into their insurance companies, and they haven't been in any way reimbursed. I'm not for development. I was hoping maybe in a smaller form, maybe 2 or 3 houses. The lot isn't very big. That would lower the congestion. I understand originally, unless something's changed that I missed already tonight, I apologize, they were 2-level houses. The neighborhood's all ranch houses. And I would assume with 14 buildings that would, if there's an upstairs and a downstairs, there'd be at least 2 bathrooms. That'd be a minimum of 28 residents. Originally, it said on the form there was no children, but I understood from the lawyer, he said that's not something that could be like enforced in any way. So you could have more than 2 people. I think we need more for families. The 2 buildings, the 2 mills that were developed in West Warwick are fantastic. There's hundreds. They've taken old buildings like the Sawtooth building and revamped it and put hundreds of apartments for people who are divorced or people who are starting out who can't afford to have a down payment for a house right now. I think that's great, and that's taken that, but I think we need more homes and less congestion. I don't know how those people are going to be able to get out, and we certainly don't need another light there to come out. From my house down to the highway, there's got to be 6 lights. There's 3 high schools, 4 schools total. There's between on 117 people trying to get into Scott School, nobody lets them in. Drumrock, the junior high and the high school all have problems with people trying to get in and out. The drainage, I'm mostly concerned. That's my biggest concern, that I don't have any flooding in my house at all. It would be very bad if I have insurance and the insurance tells me they're not going to pay for that. If I didn't know, the thing I missed is, are they going to be hooked up to sewers or not? Is that,
Mr. Attorney?
is definitely sewers?
Okay, you have to go on the microphone.
I'm sorry. It'd be serviced by water and sewer.
So they will be connected to water and sewer.
In the initial diagram that they had last time, there was, I don't know what you call it, and I hope somebody can answer this. Right behind my house, there were 2 things. There was just a wrought iron fencing, so that doesn't give any buffer as far as noise. I don't know if they change the plan to make it like one of those high plastic fencing, 6-8 feet for that. And I know they had arborvitaes there, which are great. And then they had one of those, I don't know what you call them, it's like a rock pit that the water comes into. I don't know, is that still part of the plan, that they were gonna do that?
Yeah, if
Okay.
you could come to the mic, if you just talk about the area around there, the landscaping, the different things that you're proposing.
Yeah,
So you do still have that right behind my property?
so there's three things, I think, flooding being the first one that we're talking about now. That's a retention basin, so it's not necessarily a rock pit. What it does, it's basically a designed swale in the ground. They may have some type of underground infrastructure to them. They're basically concrete holding tanks. What they do, depending on the soil, is they hold the water they take the square footage of the roofs, they take the square footage of the concrete that's impervious, it's not going to soak up any water. They direct that runoff from those gutters, from those drains, into those swales. Now, they're designed to, within a certain relatively short number of hours, be saturated, right? So the water, instead of the water running into your property, it's rooted into those basins, those swales.
Is there only gonna be one basin?
I don't know. That's that preliminary plan. So there probably be more than one, just based on the depth. There'll probably be one in the front, one in the back. But those are the
Do they
basin.
actually put piping so it diverts away
Yes.
from my property?
Yes.
Also, what does it divert into though?
Into those drainage basins, and those drainage basins sink down and they go into the ground. So they matriculate down into the groundwater. They don't overflow like a stream anywhere.
Okay.
They pool the water and then go
But
down
now,
into
as
the
far as the
groundwater.
pooling, if we get a lot of rain, if we get a lot of rain like we've had now, I'm concerned about mosquitoes, especially with Tripoli and West Nile. And I know my next door neighbor who's not here today, he has young grandchildren that play in his backyard also, that he wouldn't even put spray on because they're so small. Is there anything with is there a guarantee that the water is not going to be above level to contain mosquitoes? That's my question.
Sir?
Thank you, Mr. President. So that's going to be addressed primarily at the next hearing stage.
Yep.
The engineer will design these so that they matriculate in. They can't pool water. They're not going to be a pond there for a long term. That's something that the planning board and the engineering, the planning department and the engineering firm will discuss as well as with DEM. And that's something that Alpha Associates can address either personally or at the next hearing as far as what that will be.
Does that happen though?
The next stage, if this is approved, the next stage is to go into the design work. So they come and they design those, they take soil samples and they design those systems. At that point, he would be able to tell you after 100-year or a 500-year rain event, how long you could expect standing water to be there.
Right, that would be my biggest concern, is the standing water and
Understood.
and stuff, because especially now because of the mosquitoes and stuff. Thank you, I appreciate it. I think that's it. Thank you all for my time, and sorry, I apologize, I was late.
No, perfect timing. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against this project at this time? Is there anyone else who would like to speak against this project at this time? Is there anyone else who would like to speak against this project? Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this project at this time? Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this project at this time? Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this project at this time? Okay, at this time, can I get a motion to close the public hearing? Councilman Foley, second by Councilman Ricks. All those in favor say aye. Aye. So now we're back to the full council. Councilman Sinapi.
So the only thing I want to make note of is, first, the flooding issue is interesting because I had looked at a house right near there. I think it's actually in a butter. And their basement was like a lake, to be honest. It was very alarming. At the time, it was assumed that it was due to that particular house's lack of gutters, but it sounds like it might be a neighborhood issue, which I'm rather worried about. But I'm glad to hear at least that is on the radar of the developer, and they'll be looking into it as we go forward. The other thing is what Councilman Latterson mentioned. I have the document. It looks like that will be addressed one way or another if it comes up, as it's about if it encroaches on the setbacks, they're going to need approval from zoning board. The only thing I wanted to mention is to make sure the developer is aware of Mr. DeCourt's comments. That way, if and when this becomes something that needs to be addressed, it's actually done and nobody's surprised. But other than that, it sounds like this is potentially a good project, so I'm looking forward to it going forward.
Any other additional questions or comments from members of the council? Okay, hearing none. Councilman Sinapi, would you like to make a motion? We didn't have. He made a motion for favorable action, second by Councilwoman Travis, Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Howe, and Councilman Ricks. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Yes. Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Yes. Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, first passage.
Thank you very much. 9 yes, so first passage. So now we will move. Again, is there any objections from my colleagues on the council to hearing PCO 12-24, the second public hearing this evening at this time? Okay, hearing none. We will now take up PCO 12-24, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Warwick, Rhode Island Custom Builders applicant, 1187 Post Road. Committee report, public properties.
Recommend and move to open public hearing.
Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So this is, now we're on number 2, PCO 12-24. We're going to follow the same exact format that we did for the last one. Members of the council will get to ask questions. Then members of the public, I will ask 3 times if you'd like to speak for this project, 3 times if you'd like to speak against this project, and 3 times if you'd like to be heard on this project. So at this time, is there anyone here to present PCO 12-24 this evening?
Good evening again. David Johnston, attorney for the applicant, office at 2363 Post Road in Warwick. We're here again seeking a zone change. This is 1187 Post Road. This parcel is currently split zoned. The front of the parcel on Post Road is in the general business district. The rear of the parcel is in the A7 district. We're seeking to turn this into the PDR overlay district, so it will be the A7/GB PDR overlay. Here, we are proposing an 11-unit townhouse-style development extending in from Post Road. The existing retail building, it's a concrete, kind of a split-level building there on the site, will be demolished as part of this project. Again, the planning board unanimously approved the master plan, as well as gave a unanimous positive recommendation for this zone change recommendation. The findings of the planning board included consistency with the surrounding neighborhood, consistency with the comprehensive plan, as well as promoting the redevelopment of outmoded commercial properties. Again, the applicants and I have reviewed the stipulations of the planning board and are in full agreement with them. And similar to the prior project, these are going to be homes which are going to be offered at a price point that are considerably more competitive than with the single-family homes in that Norwood area. In behind it, again, offering housing opportunities to a wide variety of folks. And that's kind of what this project is geared to. Again, it's a standalone parcel of land, about an acre, and will have minimal impact on those surrounding areas for the same reasons we discussed with the prior application. And then the development is pulled in from the surrounding property lines, has less infrastructure requirements because of that PDR overlay versus a regular subdivision in this zone. So again, we are here, happy to answer any questions, any concerns council members may have, or members of the public.
Thank you very much. This is in Ward 2, Councilman Ricks.
Thank you, Council President. A few questions. Have any of the abutters or other neighbors reached out to you with any questions or concerns?
At the master plan stage, some months ago, one or two neighbors did call on this project. We spoke with them somewhat briefly, and I did email a site plan to one neighbor. I never heard back from them. I hadn't seen them since, but I did kind of go through what the project entailed.
So it appears that their concerns have been addressed?
Yeah, they didn't voice any concerns. It was mostly curiosity, to be honest with you, at that master plan stage. They received the notice. The city council notice has the full map. I don't remember if the master plan notice has the full map or not, but it was more curiosity as far as how it would work. And it was relatively short, pleasant conversation.
Oh, certainly. And I'm familiar with that process, and that's to be expected. So I may have some additional comments afterwards, after we see and hear if there are any members of the public from Ward 2 here this evening. But I suppose a couple of quick questions. What's the approximate size of each of the 11 townhouse units? I take it that they're all approximately the same size?
So they will be roughly the same size. They're 2-bedroom units. The square footage, if I can ask the builder.
Certainly.
They're about 1,050 square foot, 2-bedroom units.
Yeah, that's a pretty decent size. Not too small, not too large for that desired price point, I suppose. Yeah, one item here is there are a number of various stipulations from the planning board. Some of them very common, dare I say, boilerplate. Item number 7, applicant is to locate and preserve existing trees to the greatest extent possible prior to and during site work/construction. So I know that we see that item on so many of these different developments, but I think it really bears emphasis here because the back half of that property, neighbors have been accustomed to having that nice wooded area back there. So to the extent that as many trees as possible can be saved or additional trees can be planted, I'm sure that even if neighbors aren't coming up and voicing their concern ahead of time, I'm sure that they would be very pleased to see some of that tree cover remain, maintaining some of that privacy that they've been accustomed to for all of these years. And without getting too far ahead of myself, because I do want to, of course, hear from the public on this as well. If there are any members of the public from Ward 2 here this evening, none had reached out to me ahead of time. However, of course, there's no requirement to reach out to me ahead of time either. But I do think that this does look like a good fit for the neighborhood. It's residential. The front half of this space has been a little bit of it's been something of a strip mall. I think it's polite to say that it has seen better days. And certainly that stretch of Post Road, we have a number of different empty storefronts. Some of those have been renovated recently. We're seeing some life come back, but it certainly seems like we need more housing. And I'm not sure if there's quite the same demand for those small storefront types that aren't exactly in the greatest condition nowadays. So I certainly think that the idea here makes sense. And it is, I think, very much complementary to the neighborhood to have nice new modest-sized townhouse units in that area, especially since there's the direct access from Post Road, so it is not contributing to additional traffic on Norwood Ave or Petticonsett Ave or the surrounding neighborhood more generally. With that, I'll reserve the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. While I realize this issue is a Ward 2 issue, and as Councilman Sinapis was a ward issue, I think whenever we are considering zoning changes, I think it warrants questions and concerns. if we have one. Because ultimately, the decisions that are made here certainly could come back and impact any one of us in our wards at a future time. The only thing I would say on this is the same as I said on Councilman Sinapi's, and I would reference the comments made by Al DeCourt, the building official. I think Councilman Sinapi's reasoning with that was appropriate, but I would just want to bring that to Councilman Rick's attention as well, because they're very similar. I don't have any objections to the proposal itself, but it's something that I just wanted to bring out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other additional questions from members of the council at this time? Okay. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak in favor of this project? Is anyone here from the public that would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anyone here that would like to speak against this project? Is there anyone here that would like to speak against this project? Is there anyone here that would like to speak against this project? Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this project at this time? Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this project? Is there any members of the public here that would like to be heard on this project? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to close the public hearing? Councilman Ricks? Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye. Aye. So now we are back to the full council. Councilman Ricks.
I'd like to thank the applicant as well as the planning department and planning board. From everything that I've seen here going through the application, especially detailing how there are 11 units as opposed to the maximum that could potentially be allowed of 14. Looking at that layout and otherwise looking through the stipulations and the rest of the information in the application, it's clear that a lot of thought, time, and effort went into this to make sure that it is compatible with the neighborhood and that this is what we need here in the city of Warwick at this time to expand housing while doing so in a way that's compatible with the existing neighborhood. And I think objectively, when one looks at this, overall adding and improving to that Norwood neighborhood. For those reasons, I think that a zoning change here is certainly warranted. I would be in support of that. And I would also just like to, again, thank the applicant for working with the city and otherwise communicating promptly with the neighbors. Generally speaking, in these circumstances where I'm not getting a whole bunch of phone calls, we're not seeing a whole bunch of people, in fact, any people, come to this city council meeting with concerns, that also speaks to the process and that the neighbors are most likely satisfied with the process, having received the information that they need to receive. Thank you.
And Councilman, while you have the floor, do you have a motion?
I do. Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley and Councilman Lattiser, Councilwoman Travis. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, the clerk will call roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, first passage.
Thank you. First passage passes. Thank you, everyone. At this time, I believe we should go back to the beginning of the agenda. So I'm going to call on Councilman Sinapi.
So I move that the Warwick City Council go into an executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2 regarding pending litigation, Cody v. Travis et al., case number 1:23-CV-00346.
Do I have a second to that motion? Second by Councilman Lattiser. We're going to do a roll call on that. Councilman Gephardt, we're going to do a quick roll call on that. All those in favor of moving to an executive session, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis? 9 yes to move to executive.
Thank you. We are now moving to executive session.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. I like how you mentioned.
Your price range, but I got a 45-star flag coming. I'm so happy. I'm watching
Good evening again. We are back at the full council meeting. Solicitor Walsh.
We are now back in open session of the council. We'll provide a report that the Warwick City Council convened into executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 4246-5A2 regarding pending litigation, Cody v. Travis et al., case number 1:23-CV-00346. There were 2 votes taken during executive session. Both were unanimous. The first was a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session, and the second was a motion to return to the open session. And that concludes the executive session report.
Thank you, Solicitor Walsh. So if you're following us on the agenda, we've just completed the executive session of the Warwick City Council. We have already completed general communications. So now we're moving on to executive communications. There are none. So now we're on A, the acceptance of the minutes from the council meeting held on September 4th. Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? One is going to abstain. Ward 8 is going to abstain on that. Next up on the agenda is public comment, Rule 41. We have completed that. So now we're on number 1, the consent calendar, PCR 89-24, resolution relative to bids, committee report, finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. Go ahead, Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bid 2023-257, 2025-186, 2024-200, and 2025-168. That concludes the bid.
Thank you. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in committee? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Yes. Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis? Yes. 9 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Motion passes. I believe one item was removed from the consent calendar. Councilman Howe.
Yes, Mr. President. PCR correction. Formerly bid 2025-130, Padula Square improvements is now PCR 90-24. Recommendation was favorable action with amendment.
With an amendment. Okay. For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action with amendment.
Second by Councilman Foley. Councilman, what is the amendment?
Thank you.
Yep. Do you amend the budget code 510-400 to be 510-05059, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions on the amendment? Okay, so Councilman Howe, you move that amendment?
Move favorable action.
And second
As
by
amended.
Councilman Foley. Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action on the amendment.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis? 9 yes to amend.
Thank you. Councilman Howe, would you like to move that favorable as amended?
Move favorable as amended.
Second by Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action as amended.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
motion passes as amended.
Next up, if you're following along, we've already done referred business of PCO 11-24, and we've also completed PCO 12-24. So now we're moving to new business on the agenda, page 5. First up is PCO 9-24, committee report ordinance.
Was moved to the floor, no recommendation.
This is the no-through trucking.
I lied to you. It was a positive recommendation.
Okay, for action, Councilman Ricks.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Lattiser and Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action. Yes.
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 Thank you. First passage. Number 2 this evening is PCO 13-24. an ordinance requiring a public hearing before the city council regarding the 5-year budget forecast. Committee report ordinance. This one was. Okay. Well, I believe that Councilman Lattiser was going to have an amendment on this, so I will recognize Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, I'll defer to the council solicitor to read the amendment.
Councilman Lattiser moves an amendment. It is to page 1, line 30, deleting the word public and removing the capital H and inserting a lower h before the word hearing, so that the line 30 would now read, Finance Director shall present such report and answer questions at a hearing before the City Council.
So my recommendation would be that we take up this amendment at this time, get that cleared so everyone's on the same page, and then we'll go back for any questions or comments as a whole. So do you make that motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion as amended.
As proposed. Do we have a second on the amendment? Second by Councilman Howe and Councilman Rex. Any questions on the amendment? Okay, so the clerk will call a roll just on the amendment.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes to amend.
Okay, thank you. We had some good debate on this. Any questions or comments that were not stated earlier this evening in committee? Councilman Sinapi.
So the only thing I was going to add is that while I understand and agree with the points regarding transparency, it is important to note, and I think it was mentioned, that none of this, under the current scheme, there's no limitation on what questions can be asked about the budget forecast. Any councilman can email any question, call about any question, even the public can. It's not like the proposal is the only way they can get this information. It's already readily available to them. And if a council person wanted to, and I think it's happened before, if not necessarily in regards to the 5-year forecast, but regarding other items, those answers could be posted far and wide for the world. So while I understand the thought behind this, it doesn't seem like a need by any means. And as was pointed out by at least one other council member, I'm just like they are, I'm big on efficiency. And this would readily impede that while accomplishing something that could be accomplished elsewise. So with that in mind, I'd like to call the vote.
So and nothing is in play right now, so if someone wants to make a motion.
I'd move for unfavorable action.
Okay, the Councilman Sinapi did have the floor. Is there a second to that? Second by Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments on the unfavorable action recommendation? Okay, so hearing none, a yes vote is for unfavorable action on PCO 13-24. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
No.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
No.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
No.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Ms. Travis?
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no. Motion passes.
Thank you. Unfavorable passes. Next up is PCR 88-24, resolution relative to issue a request for proposals for community projects, committee report, finance.
Favorable action?
Councilwoman Travis, could you move that for me, please?
Move favorable action on PCR 8824.
Second by Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in finance? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action.
McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Ward 1, anything to docket under unanimous consent. Ward 2.
Pass.
Ward 3. Pass. Ward 4.
Pass.
Ward 5. Ward 6.
Pass.
Ward 7 passes. Ward 8. Ward 9. Councilwoman Travis.
If there be no further business of this honorable body, I move to a docket session.
All those in favor to move into docket session say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are now in the docket session. I have one item to docket, and that is Community projects, ARPA, community neighborhood projects. Finance. Ward 1. Ward 2.
Pass.
Ward 3.
Pass.
Ward 4. Ward 5. Ward 6.
Pass.
Ward 8. Ward 9. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.